Yes, people, what is going on? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to Peter on Pole. My name is Peter. In pole position, of course, people. If there's going to be some breaking news for your head top, it has to be one of the greatest people ever in Formula One. Back at the helm yet again, Mr. Adrian Newey, the man, the chief, the Don Dada of design, the man who makes the greatest cars that we've ever seen on a Formula One track. Ladies and gentlemen, the man is joining Aston Martin in 2025. Guys, this is big, big, big news. Yeah, one of the best in the business. And of course, I was going to come on here and talk about said situation. Now, remember, you can always get your comments in the comment section. We'll be reading them out live. And if you like Formula One content like this, listen, smash a like on the video. All right, and subscribe to the channel as well. On 700 subscribers, so big up to everybody that's been following from day one. Let's get on that road to 1K subs. That will be tremendous scenes. But enough about me today. We are here to talk about that man, Mr. Adrian Newey, joining Aston Martin. Guys, this is huge. This is big business. This is massive. Huge for Aston Martin. Also very, very huge for Adrian Newey. Now, look at this, people. He is named as the managing technical partner. What does that mean? There is so much at stake here, people. Okay, it's not just he's going to be a chief designer or he's going to be designing the Formula One cars for Aston Martin, as he's done previously with the Red Bulls, of the McLarens of this world, and of course the Williams. We are talking about partnership. We are talking about shareholding. We are talking about investment with this man, Mr. Adrian Newey. Let me know in the comment section if you are hearing me loud and clear. I see some of you right now live at this moment in time. Do smash a like on the video as well. Let's get this video going to loads of people. But yes, the contract is said to be around £20 million a year up front for Mr. Adrian Newey. Now, Lawrence Stroll, the owner of Aston Martin, said that, listen, this is a bargain. 20 million a year is not cheap, okay? It's not cheap business at all. But apparently with bonuses and add-ons and everything else included, we are looking at 30 million a year. Adrian Newey could be getting 10 million in terms of bonuses at the end of a season, depending on what Aston Martin do, of course. It will probably depend on race clauses. It will probably depend on championship wins, the lot. This is incredible stuff. Can you imagine, you know, if you're into your football or you like your sports, people like Pep Guardiola do not make this money. Okay, 30 million, up to 30 million pounds a year. Incredible scenes, incredible scenes. We are talking about a man who has won championships with Williams, with McLaren, as well as Red Bull. The man has won trophies galore. I saw a picture from, it must have been, I think it was from Autosport. They put up a design, you know, basically a picture of what this man has done in Formula One. And I must admit, it was absolutely frightening. When you see it, it was absolutely frightening. And if I can do, I will put up a little picture and show you right here. It was phenomenal to see. This man is a beast in Formula One. The reason why, like, you know, we don't normally talk about technical staff, or we don't normally talk about, you know, the people that are not drivers in Formula One. When we're talking Formula One, we are talking about the big dogs. We're talking about the Lewis Hamiltons of this world. We are talking about the Max Verstappens of this world. You know, Fernando Alonso of this world, which we'll get to, by the way, in terms of Fernando Alonso. But this man, look at the titles here, people. This man has been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. And we're talking in different decades as well. It started off in 92 with Williams, okay? The guy was winning championships. And when I say he was winning championships, Adrian Newey's primary role, if you're new to Formula One, if you're new to even who Adrian Newey is, part of you see the look and the shape of these cars that you're seeing right here. He is part of the team, if not that would be designing the type of Formula One car. Now, Formula One teams will have to follow a certain regulation, depending on the sort of era we're in. But the different regulations will have, you know, they'll leave room for creativity. They'll leave room for the designer to actually do something about said vehicle. But then there comes like the aerodynamic part. Adrian gets involved in how the car is actually maneuvering on the track in terms of what's the best aero kind of dynamic we can have on this car. What's the best way to design a car? How do we get the air to move fast, sort of flowing fast through the car itself? How do we create the most downforce? How do we create the most speed? All of these things are sort of, it's one of the great things about Formula One, okay? A lot of people might think it's about the drivers, and I totally understand and I totally get it. It is about the drivers in some part, for sure. But I tell you what, the magic is what happens behind closed doors. It's what happens in the winter months when there's no racing. from December or even November, December, January, February, around that time there is where these people, the Adrian Neweys of this world, your technical directors, your chief directors, your aerodynamicists, the engineering side, these people get into work and they get to deal with the biggest problems that occur. And they find out ways to squeeze seconds in terms of pace. And, a second in Formula One is like blinking an eye, but it's a massive distance in Formula One terms. But Adrian Newey, you look at the plethora of titles he has won under his watch, under his design, in part of the team, whether he was the leader of the team or not. This man, drivers' championships as well as constructors' championships. The man wins cars, wins titles. Okay, these cars are winning titles. And you look at that Red Bull record right here, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, they cleaned up. And then, regulations have changed and things have moved on. And fair play to Red Bull. I don't know how, when you sort of look at it now, how Christian Horner and the like kept Adrian Newey at Red Bull for so long before winning the next title in 21. Very controversial circumstances, of course. But 22 and 23 cleaned up. And in 2024, where, he's been part of the team, of course, but he's actually kind of stopped being involved heavily this season. And ironically, Red Bull have actually been stinking up the joint just a little bit since Adrian has sort of left. Because he kind of left, I think it was Miami Grand Prix around that time when he actually left, or when he was saying he was leaving. And since then, he's not been involved. And since then, really, Red Bull have not been the greatest, okay? They've not been the greatest. But it was around the Japanese Grand Prix, I think, when Adrian had told his peoples about leaving Red Bull and, moving on to pastures new. This is, like, when I talk about these titles, this guy is serious in the game. He's no joke, okay? He's no joke. 92, 93, 94, 96, 97 with Williams. Then 98. The guy moves from Williams straight to McLaren. 98, 99, bang. Back-to-back titles. Yeah? Whether it's drivers, and I think it was one world constructors title. But as you can see, the Red Bull one is incredible. It's incredible numbers that you're seeing here regarding this man. But yeah, Adrian Newey is not somebody to mess around with, okay? He's not he's no joke in this game, people. He's no joke. Smash a like if you are loving the fact Adrian Newey has joined Aston Martin. Listen, he's joined Aston Martin. We've got to ask why. Let's discuss this. Why on earth would Adrian Newey join Aston Martin? One of the first things he said, and they did a whole press conference for this guy. When I tell you he is a heavyweight, he's big. He's a big deal in Formula One, because you don't normally get a press conference for staff. You know what I mean? Just for staff, even if you're senior exec, whatever the case may be. But this man is so pivotal and so important in Formula One. They had to give this man the sort of the respect and the honor. If you saw the press conference today from Aston Martin, it was quite weird, because it was almost, I think Autosport kind of referred to it as like a funeral type, sort of wedding/funeral type of thing, because it had like, like in a wedding, you have like the groom's side of the the guests that are of the groom are on one side, and then of the bride it's the other side. It was that kind of thing. There's like an aisle down the middle, and of course, Mr. Lawrence Stroll, he does not miss. When it comes to the spectacular, this man does not miss. He arrived in a helicopter today, jumped in on a caddy down to the Silverstone base, right? And it was glorious. But the thing is, as well, you'll see it in Drive to Survive. Lawrence Stroll is all about doing it A1. Doing it big is what he is all about. But when we think about why, one of the things Adrian Newey actually mentioned was Lawrence Stroll. Guys, we have to give this man, Lawrence Stroll, the respect he deserves. Because to pull a personnel like Adrian Newey is no mean feat. This is serious stuff we're talking about here. This will make or break Aston Martin in Formula One forever. That's how big this transfer is. That's how big this appointment is. So much so they're giving him a share in Aston Martin, for goodness sake. Okay? They've made him the managing technical partner. Who gets titles like that? That's got to be one of the highest titles I've ever heard of in my life. I thought director, maybe CEO, MD. I thought that's as far as it goes. But to hear partner in your job title, man, Unbelievable scenes. But Lawrence Stroll is the reason, one of the main reasons why Adrian Newey decided to join Aston Martin after leaving Red Bull. Now, this has been going on for years, apparently. You know, when they were asking Lawrence Stroll, how did you get this man? This type of thing. Lawrence Stroll had been putting in the work, not for months, not for weeks, but for years. You know, some of the sort of first times when he kind of poked the bear a little bit with Adrian was like 3 years ago. You know, and you hear that they bump into the same hotels, they're in the same gyms, they're doing this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden you start to put the pieces together and you realize, hang on just a minute. What are we discussing here? What are we talking about here? You know, and it's the fact that I think over time, you know, it's not just I come to you for once and say, look, I really want you to join the team, or I really want you to do this, that, and the other. And then you kind of let it slide, and it's like 2 years go by and it's gone, it's done. But he kind of kept himself there, kind of kept himself around. And Lawrence even said, look, as soon as we knew Adrian was leaving Red Bull, we had to get this man. It was gamed over. As soon as Adrian becomes available, that's it. We throw all our eggs in this basket. And Lawrence Stroll is no fool, man. This guy, you know, billionaire. The guy, remember he took Racing Point, right? You just look at Williams. Sorry, sidetrack. You just look at what Williams could have been had, you know, Lawrence felt like, yeah, this is the place I want to go. Because remember, he was at Williams for a period with, you know, his son Lance Stroll, who was obviously driving for Williams, and now moved to Racing Point at the time. Buys Racing Point, Lawrence Stroll, that is, buys Racing Point. The rest is history. They've changed the name to Aston Martin. Here we are. But Lawrence Stroll is a pivotal person because he had nothing but the utmost respect for Adrian Newey. And I think the way sort of in which he approached him was very much like, no, I know what you are. I know how big you are. You're a big deal. He even made a comment in the press conference that blew my mind a little bit, where he said that thank you for making all of us work harder, because whilst you were in Red Bull absolutely killing it, we had to step our game up. Everybody had to step their game up. And you know, he kind of sort of praised him from what he was doing afar. And you could just see there is a certain, I don't even know what the word is. There's a certain way in which Lawrence kind of, when he sees like the golden carrot, he goes for it no matter what. And he doesn't just like rush in and kind of just jump on top of it. He kind of, I don't even know what to say. He sort of woos it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, taking out, a lovely woman to a date or whatever. You want to be with them and you want to marry them one day. You don't just go out there and start proposing. But you slowly kind of build the blocks a little bit. You go for a coffee. Let's have a little conversation. You know, we might go for a meal. Things lead to another. You know what I mean? One thing leads to another, and off we go. You know, you sign for Aston Martin. Simple as that. But Lawrence Stroll is one of the main reasons why, I think, because he set out the vision. Now, it's said that in June, Lawrence Stroll had got rid of all the staff in the office and let everyone go home. See you later. And in that, kind of sneakily brought Adrian Newey privately to see the facilities and to look at what was actually going on behind the scenes at Aston Martin and what they were trying to build, because they're in the middle of sort of building a whole new sort of, I guess, headquarters, office, main place kind of thing, center, basically. And it's sort of near completion. But during that kind of tour, that private tour, of course, you know, Lawrence Stroll is in the ear of Adrian Newey, telling him, look, this is what can happen. This is what it can be. This is how we can, you know, we're trying to win championships here. We're trying to be the best. We're trying to be number one. And I think it's easy to try and sell a project to somebody when you can just, if you got away with words. But I think at the same time, there is some proof in the pudding about Aston Martin. The way Lawrence has gone all in Formula One, you know, it's a credit to anybody that's kind of looking around and thinking, you know what, he's not just here just to make some money, because he's a billionaire. He already knows how to make money, but he's here to actually be like, you know what, I want to be number one in Formula One. And he's always said this, and I've always been skeptical of the way he's gone about it, because his son Lance Stroll is not the fastest driver on the grid, and many times, even in the Aston Martin, doesn't seem to finish too well. You know, no matter who the number two or not the other driver is, whether it's Sebastian Vettel and now Fernando Alonso. Alonso is absolutely cleaning house at this moment in time. But Lance Stroll was a big key. Also, why else would Adrian Newey want to join Aston Martin? The project is brand new. It's fresh. It's something new for Newey to jump into, right? And you know what? Newey's been around the block. He's been around for ages. You saw the image I put up earlier. Since '92, he was out here winning, right? So he's not new to new projects. He's not new or even scared of joining a new thing. When he joined Williams at the time, Williams weren't necessarily all that great. When he joined McLaren were not doing much at all. Red Bull, who were Red Bull before, Adrian Newey jumped in, they were a brand new team and he was winning titles there. There's something fresh though. Like I mentioned earlier, the facilities are brand new. Everything about Aston Martin seems to be a very slick run operation. It's something that they want to actually really, nestle down and hone in on winning championships and doing something extremely, extremely big over there. Like I said, shares, the fact that he's got some sort of shares at Aston Martin, that's the big sell. And I think Craig Slater mentioned that in his book, that Adrian always said, one day I'd like to own a Formula One team or like own something in a Formula One team type of deal. And who knows, maybe no other teams really gave him that dream. People are saying, look, would he ever get a piece in Ferrari? Would he ever get a piece in McLaren? Doubt it. Mercedes, probably not. Maybe the Williams team. But to go back to Williams, it's not really that fresh. It's not really that new. And it would have been a hard challenge that. Aston Martin, you're starting from a place of kind of like where McLaren were last year, where all the pieces, all the puzzle, the pieces of the puzzle are in place. Now it's a case of let's just let this marinate a bit and you're going to see something happen. McLaren fans, as you know, I do a McLaren fan channel, McLaren Fan TV, every Tuesday after Formula One race weekend, 7 p.m. with my co-host Mahad. Big up to Mahad. Anyway, we knew as McLaren fans this was going to be a long road. From 2022, we were discussing what was going to be taking place. And over the years, McLaren kept focused on putting in the right personnel and everything else will follow. Getting in the right facilities because they were kind of scattered and everywhere at the time. But now everything seems to be in-house and at home in Woking. Now look at it. Aston Martin have been building. They've been building facilities. They've been building ever since they bought out Racing Point. They've been doing nothing but building facilities there. So there's a lot to see. There's brand new stuff that's going on there. And Adrian Newey gets to have a share in it, right? The timing of everything is brilliant because new regulations are coming in 2026. So Adrian Newey he will have an input obviously in 2025's car, but I hear that he doesn't start till March of 2025, which the season would have already started. So it's a bit of a weird one where basically when the season sort of starts in March, you don't start building the car in March. You know what I mean? You got to get going, it's probably as early as October, November times in 2024, right? So really right now, Aston Martin are already thinking about next year's car. But the good news is that they've got a brand new set of regulations where everyone's starting fresh from scratch for 2026. So Adrian will have an input in 2025, but his main focus, I'm almost certain, will be on the 2026 car, right? So the timing's there. It's in the UK. He will be still at home. He hasn't got to go anywhere. Now, he was linked heavily with Ferrari. And, the possibility of Ferrari, Hamilton, Adrian Newey, oh my God, it's a recipe for the greatest dish of all time. However, am I going to be working in Italy? If you're Adrian Newey, really, do I want to work? He's no spring chicken. He's not young. He's clear. He could retire if he wants to. But why mess up now his life schedule to join Ferrari? Now, no disrespect to Ferrari, and I'm sure there would have been a way where they could have worked out that he would still work in the UK. But you kind of need to be there. You need to be there doing all of this sort of stuff. So he even mentioned, I think, in the press conference where he was like, 5 days a week, I need to be in the building. That's where it's at. There's no point joining the team if you're not going to be doing this. So, the Ferrari thing may have not worked purely because of the fact that, he may have had to be in Italy, which is not a bad thing. But, he's a human being at the end of the day. He's got family, wife, kids, whatever. But also just the fact that he would have wanted probably to be in Italy. Do you know what I mean? He probably would have wanted to be there because he's somebody who's very, very much invested in being part of the gang, part of the team, and I wouldn't want to do anything to kind of mess that up. So I would argue that that's the being in the UK still, I think was a selling point as well for him. The money, we spoke about that contract. Okay, 20 million is what we hear is the basic salary. 20 million a year, phenomenal money. But then the bonuses can go up to 30 million a year. 30 million pounds a year is outrageous numbers. We are talking Formula One driver money. And some Formula One drivers on today's grid do not make this money a year. So this guy is making some serious dollar. I think it's only people like Lewis Hamilton, maybe, and like Max Verstappen. They're above the 30s. I think they're in the 40s in terms of million a year. That is some serious stuff. I want to put this out there. Fernando Alonso. Interesting comment of what he said about Alonso. You know, this man was my arch nemesis. You know, my arch enemy. And it's like now, you know, now they get to kind of team up. I think there's always been that kind of awe and respect between Fernando Alonso and Adrian Newey. Even Alonso used to say things like, we're not just fighting Red Bull or fighting just Max Verstappen. We are fighting Adrian Newey. And he's always been a man that, and Fernando Alonso, you know, the thing with him, he knows, he's got wheel knowledge. He knows about Formula One. You know, you get people who are just drivers. They're here today. They're gone tomorrow. I kind of get that vibe of like a Lance Stroll. He's a Formula One driver. He knows his Formula One stuff. However, it's not in the same vein as, say, a Fernando Alonso. Just like in football, for example, you've got those players who've been players for years, and then, you know, you got your Pep Guardiola, who was a player, but you just knew he knew so much about football, he could become a manager. I couldn't see Lance Stroll being a manager. I could see Fernando Alonso being a manager. Does that make sense? Anyway, Adrian Newey as well. He's a friggin' the smell of petrol is like his drug. So you imagine, you combine Adrian Newey with Fernando Alonso. Could you imagine the chemistry between those two? Like, even if Fernando Alonso is fed up of the car that's been designed, the language in which Fernando Alonso can speak to Adrian Newey is not going to be anything foreign. Adrian Newey has made cars that should not have been winning championships win championships. This is the biggest deal we cannot underestimate how huge this transfer is. It's huge. Fernando Alonso and Adrian Newey partnership, mate, that is, because you could imagine when Adrian looked around and said, look, okay, where can I go? Where should I go? Do I want to stay in Formula One? What's going to keep me here? He'll be looking at the people like, you know, Aston Martin. You would have said, you know, there's Fernando Alonso. That's a big prospect there. Would I go to McLaren? Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I've been there already. McLaren's good. It's good proposition there. And maybe it's just like, you know, it's the Alonso itch, maybe. He might have had to just scratch that itch. He might have looked at Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari and thinking, you know what, I need to scratch that itch as well. Many people thought he was heading down that way. But I'm delighted he's actually gone the Aston Martin way, because it brings another, you know, a contender to this. We'll get onto what this means for Aston Martin in just a bit before I get ahead of myself. But yeah, and who knows, I was listening to a few podcasts on the Formula One circuit, and people talking about, you know, Project Lance Stroll. Can Adrian Newey, if anyone's going to be able to get Lance Stroll to actually be decent, not even decent, like good, very good driver on the grid, you know, high-end points, podiums, race wins, like, it's, you know, if you think, oh, maybe this could be the thing that he needs, you know, and I don't know, I just feel like, can somebody just, because Lawrence Stroll, of course, is not going to let his son go. He's just not. And the thing is, where I don't blame him is that there's 2 seats in Formula One per team. So he can always sacrifice 1 seat as long as he's got another that's absolutely elite. Alonso is one of the best drivers in Formula One history. Alonso is one of the best drivers on the Formula One grid today. And I know he hasn't won a Formula One race in ages, in what has been forever. But now, I think it's time. We could see, that's the thing, Adrian Newey can be so pivotal in this team, whereby in 2026 we could actually see them winning races. And that doesn't sound crazy, because just look at what McLaren have done when everyone's got their finger out and when everyone's got their, you know, head screwed on. Look at what you can do with these teams. And you know, it's one of them ones where he doesn't even need to prove himself, Adrian Newey. He doesn't actually need to prove himself. He's actually pretty legit where he is. You know, where he is right now, he's pretty legit. He can be very content with the fact that he's done it all, you know. But you know what? Let me try and do it again. And Aston Martin has got great potential, bags of it. It's not like Alpine, where we've been saying it's been potential and then it's actually, now we don't even believe you anymore, you know. The boy who cried wolf. You look at Mercedes. I mean, the fact that I don't think he even sniffed anywhere near Mercedes, to me, says more about Mercedes than it does say about Adrian Newey. So Watch that space over there at Mercedes. It should. I mean, it looks like it's getting better, but let's have a look. Let's have a let's wait and see. Honda engine in 2026. Honda engine in 2026. This is a big deal. Why? Because when he was at Red Bull in the heyday, what was the engine that was powering that car? It was the Honda engine. He's worked with the Honda engine before, and so here he is, and quite what's very interesting as well. He mentions about the Honda engine in sort of the presser, and I'm thinking, I wonder why he's mentioned that. Obviously, Mercedes engine is still Aston Martin's partner right now, and will be for next season. But in 2026, it will be the Honda engine, and it was just interesting that he brought that up. Didn't say much about Mercedes engine, brought up the Honda engine. And talks about obviously the relationship that he's had with them previously. He's had recent success, so they will understand each other. Now, here's another one, right? And finally, before we get on to what this means for Aston Martin, Eddie Jordan supposedly is the manager of Adrian Newey, which to me is hilarious, by the way. And I know that Eddie Jordan has mentioned it on his podcast with David Coulthard. Big up to them. Former McLaren man, David Coulthard, of course. He's mentioned it on there, and it's kind of, I've heard it, and I'm like, wait, did I hear that? Did I actually hear that he is the manager? And it kind of just goes by. Now it's like, okay, everybody's now talking about it, so it's a bit more like cemented in stone. But anyway, what's my point here? Eddie Jordan used to own a team called Jordan. Where were they based? Right there in Silverstone. And what did Jordan become? They changed their name and they became Force India. And then from Force India to Racing Point to what is now Aston Martin. Ironically, Adrian Newey's manager, formerly an owner of a Formula One team, is the same team in terms of like base, in terms of fabric, in terms of whatever you want to call it, in its reincarnations, is the same team. That's all I got to say about that is I'm not too sure whether there's something in that, but I'm a bit like, this is very interesting. Shall we investigate this further? Maybe we shall see down the line. So we know why Adrian Newey would have joined Aston Martin, but what is in it for Aston Martin? Why would Aston Martin want Adrian Newey? Sounds like a ridiculous question, by the way, and believe me, it is. But guys, number one, the most important one, I think, in all of this is to win titles. You know what, people? Listen, I'm going to go so overboard here. Aston Martin will win a title as long as Adrian Newey is at that team. Newsflash, we have a new team in the fold. Okay, I know we've been worrying about who's chasing Red Bull this season. Is it McLaren? Is it Mercedes? Is it Ferrari? All three teams have had a piece of the pie at one stage. McLaren now seem to be the hot property at the minute. But we now have to include Mr. Aston Martin. We need to include Aston Martin. Why? Adrian Newey is at the helm. And they've got a good owner, by the way. Lawrence Stroll is a top-notch owner. And they've got a top-notch managing technical partner now, right? Chief designer. Designed some of the best Formula One cars we've ever seen. When you think about sort of the only kind of eras where you would say, where Newey wasn't involved with was the Ferrari era in terms of like Schumacher days and Hamilton days at Mercedes. Like, those are the two eras where it was like battling against him, and he didn't win those. But besides that, this guy was all over the place, winning championships, right? Everywhere he's been, he has won. Yeah? Everywhere he has been, he has won. So if you're an Aston Martin fan or you're an Aston Martin member of staff, this is a time to feel good. This is a time to celebrate. This is a time. Now, listen, nothing's been done yet. However, if Adrian Newey doesn't win anything in Aston Martin, that's not down to Adrian Newey, is it? Let's just call it what it is. It won't be down to Adrian Newey. Not at all. So, titles will be at Aston Martin because of the simple fact that Adrian Newey is there. Simple as. Okay? The potential for world-class drivers. Now, let's see. If Adrian Newey's got a 3 to 4, 5-year contract, let's say, for argument's sake, what happens after Alonso in 2026? Alonso might, just want that race win again. Get that race win, retire, sayonara, off we go. I don't see Lance Stroll going anywhere as long as Lawrence is the boss. So there could be potential, like, for Hamilton, for example, could look at Ferrari in that time, because he's going to be there for about a year, 2 years by the time Alonso's contract is up, right? And if Alonso doesn't want to sign a new deal, fine, but there will be suitors for Aston Martin, because I think there will be so much progression in that Aston Martin between now and 2026 into 2027, where you think, you know what, Hamilton might be thinking, I want a piece of this. If it's a shambles at Ferrari, he might want to say, you know what, I want a piece of this. So there's potential for world-class drivers. Where will Max Verstappen be? Now, it could be interesting to see Lawrence Stroll recruit Max Verstappen alongside his son, Lance Stroll. But listen, if they are about winning championships, if they are about this big business, which I think Aston Martin has been, and the thing is, Lawrence Stroll has always spoken this way. He's spoken in a way of like, I am here for one purpose, and that's to win championships, to be a world-class Formula One team. He will bring Max Verstappen in here. And by the way, he's got the pull, okay? Because let's talk about this. Lawrence Stroll managed to get Adrian Newey, in Aston Martin, but not just in Aston Martin, away from Ferrari, away from Red Bull, away from Mercedes, away from McLaren. Williams, that's not really a hard deal to do there at this moment in time. No disrespect to Williams. But this man actually did something quite incredible to get him into this team. So let's not snigger at this at all. Big, big business here. But potential for world-class drivers to join this team, it's there. The potential is there. Let's make no mistake about it, okay? What else? This man is the best in the world at what he does. Aston Martin will be having somebody who is the greatest of all time. He is the GOAT in Formula One when it comes to designing Formula One cars. They don't do them like this man. Pen and paper, pencil and paper. Never mind CAD drawings. I'm sure he does do some CAD, okay? But this man, just with the sheer, if you saw the way they even done a video of him, they had a video of him literally drawing a car on the piece of paper. This man he's not someone to mess with. He's no fool. Aston Martin know exactly what they're getting when they're trying to get people like him. Okay? And as I said, the Alonso-Newey partnership, honestly, I'm intrigued, ready for this. But also, Aston Martin, let's be real, Aston Martin needed a facelift. They needed some sort of boost in the sense that, do you remember, was it last season, if not 2022, 2023 season? Aston Martin came out like a house on fire after, winter testing. Alonso was on the podium. It was like, oh my God. Even Lance Stroll looked good, right? It was like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? But what's happened to them since then? People like, oh, Omar Safnauer has gone, and things, like people left, right? Those people here and there, they've gone. But Aston Martin was on this trajectory before McLaren, by the way, and then kind of just stunk out the joint. Look at them now, stinking out the joint in Formula One right now. So they needed a boost. They needed that motivation, that spring, that jolt of lightning, just to fire up the team again. And credit to Lawrence Stroll, because it seemed like he has not lost that fire, that passion. Because it's easy when the team is not doing well. It's so hard to actually try and really motivate people and try and get people back on side, back on point in terms of how they want to sort of progress. But we don't have to worry about that whatsoever if you're at Aston Martin. He has given them the boost that they need. They died drastically. That fire that they had completely has gone out. This man relights that candle. He relights that candle. And so that is what is huge in this situation here. Adrian Newey is joining Aston Martin, not just joining Aston Martin as we know it to be. Not just joining Aston Martin in the sense of he's going to design their cars. But this man's going to be an advisor. He's going to be a partner, for goodness sake, in Aston Martin. He's got shares in the company. I'm pretty sure he wants to have one of those Aston Martin road cars. Pretty sure he will. He is a race man. He's a fuel petrol head. And it's going to be a lovely combination with Fernando Alonso, Lawrence Stroll, even Lance. We'll put Lance in there as well. And Dan Fallows as well, formerly of Red Bull, remember, was working with Adrian Newey at Red Bull. And now the band are back together. Guys, there's a recipe for absolute carnage in a good sense in the Formula One world. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new title contender in Formula One. It will not just be Red Bull. It will not just be Ferrari. It will not just be McLaren. It will not just be Mercedes, right? 4 of those is good enough. But people, welcome to the stage. With the signing of Adrian Newey at Aston Martin, welcome to the stage of the title for Aston Martin. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with the reasons I've given why Adrian Newey should have joined Aston Martin? Tell me why you think this is a good signing. Tell me why you think it's a bad signing. Will Aston Martin win championships? I'm pretty sure they will. I'm pretty sure they will. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like Formula One content like this, do smash a like on this video as well. Subscribe to the channel if you are new or if you are a regular watcher but don't subscribe. Get hitting that button, okay? And until next time, it is lights out. Thank you.